start the presentations with the first of the four plenary sessions. The first plenary session is on the topic social justice and education. We have two talks in this. The first one by Professor Gopal Guru, titled Two Conceptions of Education, Gandhi and Ambedkar, followed by Professor Theodore Lewis' talk on the continuing American struggle to realize Dewey's democratic ideal through education. This plenary session would be chaired by Professor Venu Narayan of Azim Premji University. Thank you. I request all three of them to be here and...
Good morning. I'm Venu Narayan, part of Azim Premji University. And as Professor Varadarajan has already done the introductions, we can straight away start with the session. So we begin with a talk by Professor Gopal Guru. The session is for an hour. I request both speakers to limit their talk to about 40 minutes, followed by a brief question and answer session. So I will try to very unobtrusively signal to the speaker when you have about 10 minutes left, as unobtrusively as one can sitting on this podium, right? And then about 10 minutes before the end. So, Professor Gopal Guru.
Dear friends, I must apologize for not speaking in clear or maybe in rough voice because my throat is not particularly well today. Maybe, Rohit, this is a conspiracy. I don't know, but I'm not too well today. I must thank Rohit and his colleagues for inviting me to make a presentation on social justice and education. I am particularly very happy that this subject has been grossly neglected in our country, at least in imagination of education. Since some of us are really working, I have little moral claim to make this point that some of us are related with government bodies that look into education. What we normally hear is the question of autonomy, regulation, and quantity, how to really maintain balance between time and space in terms of education. That has been the official concern of the state, which doesn't really bother about what is the philosophy of education. Is there a need to really think about philosophy and education together? On the other hand, you also have disciplines which do not feel themselves completely related to education. Education is something which is a pastime. When Professor Krishna Kumar, when he was the director of NCRT, the major complaint was that these teachers from social sciences working in a college in education do not take deep interest in education. So there is, therefore, in the context of this, I think your project is so important, and I felt motivated and driven into this project. So I thank both the Vice Chancellor and Rohit particularly for inviting me. And the theme for this particular session, plenary session, is also very dear to me: social justice and education. We talk about social justice and education in a very general sense, in a very common sense. What is the vocabulary of talking about justice in education as a common sense? We talk about exclusion, we talk about discrimination, we talk about narratives of injustice. They are all common vocabularies of understanding justice in education, at all levels of education. So we have books written about exclusion. We have books written about discrimination done to women, Adivasi, Dalits, and other neglected minorities. So there is a descriptive account of justice in education, which is valid. I'm not saying this invalid, it is valid, absolutely important. But the narratives of injustice have much more complex dimension to them. It's not simple discrimination, exclusion that you really engineer. And despite the fact RTE is suggesting private, and I'm happy Vice Chancellor has made this point interestingly, that the Supreme Court in this country is discriminating. And discrimination may not be necessarily unfair. It is fair discrimination in some cases. After all, you have implemented affirmative action for so many years, and that also is protective positive discrimination. Since it is positive, it is desirable, it is actually desirable normative. But the question that one has to raise, are all discriminatory practices normative desirable? And therefore RTE said, no, you must have 25% people. Privatization, okay, choice-based. And you made a very important point. Choice-based, what kind of relationship this choice-based vocabulary has to philosophy? And now let me provoke you that this choice-based understanding actually terribly undercuts the philosophical foundation of education. And that's my clear position on this. And we'll see how it happens. So you have to get 25% people from the underprivileged background into the private. And should we forget about Bangalore incidents? What happened to those people who were admitted to private school? How were they treated? What kind of justice we are talking about? These are all issues that are going to be very, very cardinal important with acute dimensions in the near future. Therefore, you will have a continuous social obligation, Rohit, to continue this project. Absolutely important. So let's see, this is the background thing. So what does one think about going beyond the common, normal vocabulary of injustice, exclusion, discrimination? We all know the philosophical texts on justice are about the positional justice, the structural forms of justice. I have no time to go into this, neither I have capacity and credibility to go on discussing this. Positional justice in terms of exclusion, discrimination is important. But injustice acquires very, very subtle discursive forms, even in our own country. And we normally don't take notice of that. So I am going to make only 3 points. One is, what is the nature of injustice, the narrative of injustice? Second, the incidences of injustice are because of the dichotomy between knowledge and thinking. And this is the 21st century deviation from both Gandhi and Ambedkar's thinking. There are three sections in my paper. And Rohit, the paper is ready, by the way. I just must show you. This is about 30 pages. So you can trust me. So there are three sections in this. First section is, what is the discursive form the injustice acquires in our education, and we don't take notice of it. And who? Teachers and students and the state. Three parties don't take notice of this injustice that happens to you. You don't take notice of that. It's not the justice which is about positions, about people. Adivasi, women, minorities, and denotified tribes. It's not about them. It is about the vocabulary that is being maltreated, maladjusted. Vocabulary of justice itself is subjugated to maltreatment. And that is the point I want to make. It's not the embodiment of that concept that is at target. What is our target is the very discursive, abstracted concept called social justice, which is being treated, maltreated by students and teachers and other responsible researchers working in the field of particularly higher education. And let me clarify it further, that how is a language humiliated or insulted or downgraded or degraded? It is, and I'm just putting it differently, that it is downgraded, insulted, humiliated. People are unfair to this language because this language doesn't enjoy the universal respectability of the scholars. For example, language like just equality, freedom, liberty, these are all very, very benign, darling concepts. No one has any slur on this. In Delhi, there is an organization called Youth for Equality. They all the time criticize social justice as something inferior, something is a drag. So social justice gets bracketed with certain people. So there is an overlap between social justice and the constituency, social constituency. There is overlap. Social justice never enjoys, a kind of abstract respectability. It is reduced. Therefore, and should we put it this way, there is no epistemological flight involved in this concept. What is, on the contrary, ontological reduction to the existence. And that is the gross injustice that one does to the concept. To put it very simply, that you don't have to call Dalits or Dalits, you can just call them social justice communities. And that will give you entire background. So are we not discriminating, treating one concept as a darling concept, other concept as not so darling? And so this is one way of looking injustice. And how do you do it? You have to really find out. And therefore, is it the question of knowledge education? Or your decency begins before you are educated? That fundamentally Rooseveltian, Gandhian and Ambedkar and Phule. They would say you don't require education, formal education to become decent. We will come back to that in the last section. So, this is one. And then there are narratives of injustice. No. And one famous I must share with you, which has its roots in Hyderabad University. Teachers make comment that the untouchables are not only untouchables, they are unteachable. Now, what is the philosophical justification for this preposterous comment, which actually lacerates, destroys the moral integrity of that personality? Once you say you are not only untouchable, you are unteachable. It may not be it may not be applicable in American context. My friend is going to speak. So this is one form of really injustice, being unfair. So untouchable and unteachable are the same. In a way, I'm sorry, there's some announcement on the cell phone, and it's not still. So this is a. I did speak, Rohit, sometime about receptivity, the ethics of receptivity in Azim Premji sometime, last year I think. When you are receiving something, you have to receive it completely. Cell phones have no business in this whole thing. These are narratives. But the one which is very, very interesting, and which I would like to share with you, prejudice and illegitimate prejudice becomes the substitute for knowledge and reasonable knowledge. As I mentioned to you, they are unteachable. This is not reasoned out argument. It is emanating from your deep-seated illegitimate prejudice. And we have this prejudice, the source of this illegitimate prejudice in our caste system. And that's why, Rohit, social justice has to be defined in terms of the domination of caste system, just as gender has to be defined in terms of the patriarchy. That's like that. Socio-political, economic, they have their own sources of definition. I'm not going to go into that details. Social justice has to be defined singularly in terms of the caste structures that really impinge on your imagination. So untouchables doesn't become a person who is also who is not is also fit for teaching, or he can be taught, or she can be taught. So that's the the deep-seated illegitimate prejudice is emanating from caste system, and that's why you find this prejudice very, very prominent in education system in this country, right from primary to higher. And we have scholars who have done work on this, wonderful work on this. And I would say P. Sainath's stories are so important on this count. Now the prejudice is this: when a so-called Dalit professor joins a university or a college, what is the prejudice? How does prejudice get articulated? We don't know much about this person. This is the non-Dalit teachers and students. They are whispering. We don't know much about this teacher. But we are given to understand prejudice. We are given to understand this chap is terribly stuck up in Dalit ghetto. He cannot think outside the box. He is so terribly obsessed with Dalit question. This is being unfair. Now, why it is unfair? 4 points. One, that the existence of any social group, both as a physical entity and idea. To put it differently, social entities exist on the campuses both as an identity and idea, both. They are also idea. Now, when they are existing as an idea on the campus, they are not existing in isolation. They are existing as an effect of power of the general discourse on dominant knowledge. Let me repeat this point. This is the Foucauldian point. And by the way, these people who are making the comment are also the devotees of Foucault Maharaj. They fail. That's why gaining insight is thinking. They fail to develop this insight. Look here, my friends, Dalits are existing on the campus and as an idea. They are not existing in isolation because they are also existing as a part of the effect of power of the general dominant discourse. And so there is a cognitive failure on the part of the non-teaching, non-Dalit. And they are unfair because they are so much possessed with prejudice. It doesn't allow them to really think fresh. And by the way, prejudice is another philosophical category. We can also discuss that. And I had made a presentation when my own Maharaj, Sundar Sarukai, was sitting. And so I always call him my Maharaj, but anyway, he's not Foucault Maharaj. So that's a different thing. But this is one. Second, obsession can also be benign. Obsession can also be benign because it shows double commitment to social cause and scholarship. Please be fair to that. Please grant that. While your possession is legitimate, you are possessing the knowledge and using that knowledge to condemn somebody as obsessed. But there can be some, and that's why I don't mind being obsessed by a certain cause. Why will you condemn women What is the general reaction? What is the general reaction? When women talk about their own problems in the general seminar, oh, these guys, they're all predictable. Nothing wrong in being predictable, because you are not really listened to them. And that's why cynicism also has its own reason. Why are people cynical about it? Because you don't have ethics of receptivity. Your ears are not ethical. You don't want to listen to any strident voices in this classroom. You discount on them. Keep them away. Gandhi, Ambedkar would take serious objection to this kind of failure in ethics of ears. Ethics of face is fine. Ethics of ear. Anyway, so this is the second point. Vina and obsessions need to be given their due. And if I am a woman and feminist, I would not mind being obsessed. And that's why I've been working on this theme for the last 25, 30 years. For example, Dalit question. Because I'm still waiting for people to raise fundamental questions on Dalit questions. The question is, the thinking question, the question is, why is that there is no earth-shaking questions coming from those who are not experienced as Dalit or as women or as Adivasi? So obsession is benign and we must give due to that. That's another justice demand. Okay, the third point is they also go into committing serious, silly methodological mistake when they make this comment. These people do not realize that they are making a methodological mistake. Please tell me whenever time is. I'm still on the first section. Dalit question, tribal question, feminist question, minority question, and the issues revolving around this question are not considered to be adequate for theorization. So this Dalit question is removed from theories. The question is, how can your theory be perfect without Dalit? How can your theory be perfect without the feminist question or any other question? And so so they are actually committing this methodological mistake of not. By the way, who is the source of doing theory, making theory? Poor or the rich? And that was the question I asked in our Tata Tuljapur campus. Is Manor there? Yeah, he may be somewhere. So I asked this question to students. Who is the source of doing theory? Poor or rich? Different answers. Poor, rich, and together. So the question is, you just can't exclude Dalit for theorizing. On the contrary, one can make a very, very arrogant claim that it's only Dalit who can supply epistemological material to do meaningful theory. One can defend this claim. But how unfortunate or kambakat we are, we exclude it. So that's the third methodological fallacy. And fourth one is about choice, pragmatism. We do not require Dalit for doing our own theory. We have our Agrahara is good enough to do theory, universal theory. We don't require cherries. Cherries is a Dalit ghetto in South Indian language. The colonies they call now in the modern times. Agrahara can't exist logically without cherry being present there. So this is pragmatism. So we don't want to carry this cost. So these are two, so I think this is, the prejudice is dominant than reason in our own thinking. And this unfairness emanates from this dichotomy between the second point, the second section, knowledge and thinking. I am making this claim that knowledge is derivative of thinking. What has happened in Indian education, right, from last 60, 70 years? What we are focusing on knowledge, not on thinking. So the question that I would like to put to your consideration is, are our universities thinking universities? The fundamental questions that you are asking, the fundamental question doesn't surface. Why fundamental questions, original questions, authentic questions do not surface into our imagination even today? And I've been interviewing students for MPhil admissions and other things. What is your question? Please, sir, give me questions. Just as Dhanavanti Nayak was telling me yesterday that we had to give questions to the doctors. They don't have questions. So we have not been able to produce thinking universities because we are focused only on knowledge. Knowledge itself is not bad, but it is derivative of thinking. And what is thinking is again a philosophical question. And everybody is thinking, everybody can potentially think, but what one thinks is a central question. While thinking, and as I'm just quoting Karl Marx, thinking is a biological possibility, but what you think is a sociological, political construction. What is thinking? In thinking, and I'm just paraphrasing now, I will just, another 10 minutes? Okay, so I'll just I'll go quickly to Ambedkar Gandhi. One is about, thinking is about asking, and as this is again Dewey's, thinking, there are all kinds of thinkings. One thinking is a reflective thinking. In reflective thinking, you are reaching, you are not rushing. Knowledge you are rushing. There's a modernist consciousness of triumphalism in knowledge. And this is very competitive. Knowledge domain itself is so competitive. I want to get marks, I want to get grades, I want to go this and that. That's why people are going from 20% to 30% to private. It's a very, very instrumental driven thing. So rushing mode in knowledge or reaching mode in thinking. You pause, because thinking is not something which is stored there, which is accumulated, surplus. Thinking is all the time happening because you are caught into historical questions. You have to think, experiment with Gandhi and others. So thinking is actually doubt, uncertainty, ambiguity. You have to think all the time because you are caught into that question. Knowledge is received. You feel so confident about knowledge. Texts are written. And you can therefore, your flight is from concept to concept, not from. Thinking becomes possible because can you think without experience? So experience becomes the important source for thinking. You can also get some other experience. You can get aesthetic experience from jumping from one concept to another concept. You get enjoy. And I just repeat to my Manipal students and their friends. There are three ways I have put in. I don't have time. Fashion, fascination, and fate. We have to think about these three terms when you are dealing with education. I have to think because I am caught up in that fate. Very, very Hegelian. But Hegel would say you, with the power of mind, you go ahead, move history. But no, I can't do that. I have to go to Gandhi and Ambedkar. So thinking is something which is original. It forces you to ask questions to self reflectively, and also ask questions to those people who have not answered our question. Questions are still waiting for the answer, even in education, and that's thinking. It is a freedom. It's a road to freedom. Hannah Arendt. Thinking is leading you to freedom. Knowledge actually captivates you. Reified knowledge, textualized knowledge captivates you. Are we doing babysitting therefore? Are we creating kinds of mentality of self-enclosure? Your mind is flowing. Your mind is folded into knowledge. And knowledge, therefore, is an enfolding impact. Thinking is flowing, liberating, flying into freedom. And that is the thinking. And since you are so much obsessed with knowledge, and you have to defend that knowledge, in order to defend that knowledge, you have to really inflict injustice. For example, you cannot criticize, for example, the universal doctrine of social justice. It is impossible. And we have written so many 50 commentaries on John Rawls' theory of justice. Still the debate is on. There's a big challenge there. You have to take that challenge, you have to defeat Rawls. You can't do it. What you therefore do is to really attack that concept in its own concrete embodiment, and that is Dalit, Adivasi, and other things. And that's the failure. So knowledge enfolded is available for attack. Concept flowing, very difficult to attack. You can always counter it. So that's the problem. And so knowledge may not be completely ethical because dominance. And I don't have to quote Rousseau and Gandhi and others. It makes you arrogant, vanity, humiliate, everything with knowledge. Are you don't know this, yaar, kya ho raha hai? You have not read that book? You have not read the text? It happens in our David Blaich's double perspective is important. Classroom themselves are asymmetries. You actually fragment classroom in terms of who is the most idiot and section in the classroom. And in Delhi, some teachers look at only at one corner. The delivery, how unfair they are. If you are talking in terms of the abstract language, you will look only at one corner. When you are talking description and empirical details, you will look at other corner. What is the ethics? So justice itself is a deeply moral, ethical thing. And thinking itself is ethical, moral. Jara socho yaar. When you say jara socho yaar, it's deeply ethical. Take a pause, think about it. Moral, ethical question. And Gandhi, Ambedkar are absolutely driven by this. And I am prepared to discuss with anybody, I am not threatening, that both Ambedkar and Gandhi are actually privileging thinking over knowledge. And Gandhi goes one step beyond and says, look here, you don't require knowledge to be a decent person. I am peasant. But therefore, what is important in education is to train this soul. So training soul is so important in Gandhi. So that the soul keeps thinking about itself. And then the heart intersects sometimes, therefore we have to also undergo moral surgery of heart. I'm just paraphrasing. This is Bhikkhu Parekh's beautiful term. Moral surgery of heart is. Can you do this moral surgery through formal education? Gandhi said no. And for Gandhi, experience again is so important. That's why he's getting into so many experiences. Becoming untouchable, becoming bhangi, everything. Experience is so important. It's thinking. Think about it. And his target, of course, is the recalcitrant other, the Brahmin, not the Dalit. And therefore, self-purification is the thinking mode in Gandhi. And for Ambedkar, it is self-respect. And he is not focusing more on self, but on the other. And therefore, in Ambedkar, it is Buddhism, which will do the ethical and moral detoxification of the what it says. Should I say tormented self or what? But then there is a instrumental thing in Ambedkar, as he was the student of John Dewey in Columbia. He couldn't remain away from, even he couldn't escape this influence of. So what is the why do you require formal knowledge, formal degrees for Gandhi, for Ambedkar? And then 1 minute, 5 minutes, good. So that is the problem. In Ambedkar, thinking emanates from action, as it emanates from, as in case of Gandhi, it also emanates from action. But action is self-inflicted in Gandhi, but in Ambedkar it is agitation. Agitation provides reason for thinking. You have to agitate. Agitate against whom? In Gandhi, agitating against self. But in Ambedkar, it is agitating against other. Therefore, educate and agitate in Ambedkar. That was the famous slogan. And then unite. Third slogan in there. Agitation is important. But then there's a pragmatic angle to what Ambedkar is thinking about. If we are, his was a very simple answer. We are actually working in a post facto society in which knowledge has taken over thinking. People really decide their own social status based on knowledge and not thinking. Knowledge has become a standard to evaluate your own social standing. How many degrees? You're a barrister. Everybody was barrister those days. You're going to London. So knowledge becomes the field of contestation. And he went into the contestation and acquired so many degrees. And I don't want to repeat them, 7, 8 degrees to his name. Now Gandhi would really restore dignity, not so much in degree. Restore dignity in self-effacement. Bringing down somebody to zero. Effacing. And therefore, he would do that only Shudraizing everybody. The function, the social role that the thinking perform is to achieve Shudraization, that everybody is at zero. Humility. But Ambedkar would say, look, that's not easy. That's only moral thinking. Practically, people are there to use knowledge to really elevate themselves. So what he and his followers, now not so much he, but his followers are finding dignity. Dignity is dignity in degrees. And I don't think degrees really, they are important for your career graph and all that, API. But I don't think that's the... in a way, I would say both of them are actually sharing the same moral ethical ground in terms of education. They also differ marginally from each other. I think that's the last point I wanted to make. Thank you very much for your patience listening. Yeah.
We will have a brief question and answer session. There are microphones with volunteers. So if you could raise your hand and then...
It's a very it's a very good presentation, very inspiring. Only one small question. While discussing Gandhi and Ambedkar, you said Gandhi is for self-improvement or effacement, and Ambedkar is for agitation also. That's the right point about Ambedkar. But is it not right also about Gandhi? What is the concept of satyagraha? Is it not a non-violent agitation against any kind of injustice, not only against nepotism, against any kind of injustice? And if it is so, we cannot say that Gandhi is only for moral improvement, it's also for agitation.
Yes, please.
My name is Jayashree, and my question is very simple. What is knowledge for you? And what is the self when you talk of the self?
Hi. Hello. Yeah, my name is Rossi, and I just want to compliment you on your nice talk. Actually, I've got a more of a comment rather than a question. I think I'm a bit uneasy with the whole idea that that we can we can completely dismiss the whole component of the career and the exams when you talk about education. Let me clarify, because normally when you talk about dismissing questions, for example, you have dominant groups that dismiss questions of the oppressed groups. In the same way, we have educational communities that dismiss questions from the normal public who are more major stakeholders in education. And the normal public, the general public, would emphasize more on the concept of career and grades and education. So, sorry, not education, career grades and and those things. So I think that needs to be more focused on and needs to be addressed, I think, because that is a major component because normally the general public don't care about thinking and knowledge. For them, it's all about grades. And how do we tackle this issue? Normally it's just dismissed by the educational community. Thanks.
We'll take one or two more questions.
Sir, I'm Srinivas Varkhedi from Sanskrit University. Thanks for your clear understanding of distinction between knowledge and thinking. My question is, are you questioning the dominance of jnana, knowledge? So in our there is ancient saying in our philosophy, nahi jnanena sadarsham pavitram iha vidyate. Are you questioning this? But never in Indian thinking process, we have down the thinking process. See, nayamatma pravachane labhyaha na bahuna shrutena. So he'll be available only by thinking. So jignasa. So jignasa is given most prominence in any of Indian thinking process. Are you questioning these basic ideas?
Hello. Sir, I'm Dattatreya Tapkir from Pune, Maharashtra. Sir, I rightly agree with that. You have said knowledge is a derivative of thinking. But don't you think, sir, that some knowledge could be also derivative, may not be derivative, but going beyond the thinking? Because every knowledge may not be the derivative of thinking only. But as Indian philosophy thinks of, it could be even going beyond thinking, the knowledge of intuition also. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and comments. And let me clarify. I mean, this is when Gandhi is thinking about agitation. Agitation, of course, is you are agitated. It's a very active process. In agitation, satyagraha is actually opposite of agitation. It is, and you don't think that's a disagreement, which is good. I mean, satyagraha is actually to really achieve some kind of a harmony with yourself. Ahimsa. Yeah, it is. It is. It can't be. Therefore, first is about the education itself. Experiment with truth is something that you have to experiment with yourself. Because the problem is with your heart, and therefore you have to detoxify it. I'm just using the modern terminology to really make my point. And therefore, all the time you have to really, and there's a moral injunction in this. So moral approach, not moral teaching, I'm using moral approach of Gandhi may not be amenable to, may not be convincing to Ambedkar. Okay, so that's the difference between the two of them. But Ambedkar's agitation of course is an active political act. You have to positively agitate against the tormentor. Agitation is also a moral act. If you don't agitate, you are not sufficiently bringing agitation. It means will. You have to. Sorry, Can I say anything? Act itself is moral. Whether agitation, satyagraha, anything. If you don't act, you are not summoning your energies into action. I am full of power. I am not using that power. I am being immoral. So any act itself is a moral challenge. You have to summon your energy into action. That's a moral challenge anyway, fundamentally. And so your dignity lies in your summoning those energies into action. Therefore, Gandhi and Ambedkar are very, very focused on that. So that's one moral approach of Gandhi may not be convincing to Ambedkar. Because he would put premium on political rather than moral. And though Gandhi, of course, is a political person, deeply, fundamentally. And what is knowledge? Knowledge for you, what is knowledge for me? I think knowledge is required. We require I'm not discounting, I'm not throwing the baby along with bathwater, no. But what I am suggesting is the reversal. In the priority is thinking has to come before knowledge. Knowledge is an approximation, accumulation of what you think. If you don't think and if you don't textualize, history is not available to you, nothing is available, no action is possible. No. So thinking becomes transformative only through knowledge. They only know. Otherwise, if there is no knowledge in visible concrete form with boundaries, then what do? I require something. So knowledge, I'm not discounting, but what I am questioning is the priorities. And therefore, these priorities, to answer his question, knowledge is so instrumental, competitive. You can grade, you can take your grade and you become employable. And I don't know whether you become really employable through knowledge, getting degrees and grades. And so that's the flip side of knowledge when it is reduced to some kind of instrumentality. And therefore, thinking, you will always question knowledge, which is instrumental. And so self. So what do I mean by self? I mean, this is a big question. Maybe Sundar and others can reflect on this. But what is I am defining myself. How do I define myself? How do I discover myself? I have somebody who has properties of action, moral action, intervention. How do I really, am I a docile self or an active self? Self itself, in itself is not a very explanatory term. It is expansive term. I have to really define myself in terms of the other. So self is a very, very deceptive, I would say it's a very deceptive word. Unless it is really bracketed with other things. It's expansive. I am self because there is other existing. So how do I really, but in terms of education, I can make this point that am I extending myself to transformative potentials? Or am I extending myself to the state self, that I become the member of this body, that body, and other things? So self is a very moral concept in these things. Self is actually expansive, leading to transformation. Also making the other inclusive into self. So there is no division between the two. And that is my, of course there is a debate on self, and that two debates are Charles Taylor and Habermas particularly. Jnana and so, again, Jnana, of course, no one is against Jnana. But Jnana becomes a distributive commodity. In Indian philosophy, I don't know. But Jnana is objectified, impersonal. Unlike thinking, thinking is subjective and individual. Jnana is objective and impersonal. Once you convert thinking into jnana and make it objective and impersonal, then it becomes available for distribution. And there is a control on this. And who is controlling jnana in Indian tradition? Are women and Shudras and Adhyutas beneficiary of jnana? Ask this question. This is the most normative question than asking question about jnana and jigyasa. Jigyasa, of course, is thinking anyway. And this is the debate in Indian philosophy. Can knowledge go beyond thinking? I don't have any. I don't know how to think about this question. How can it go beyond thinking? Unless you are idealist, you don't have to. But they are also thinking, and then producing knowledge. So I think in the process of producing knowledge, production, and distribution, you have to. I don't think that I will still insist that thinking is primary, an authentic process of really producing knowledge. Even in idealist tradition, you will find thinking. Thinking without experience may be possible, but thinking is primary, I guess, and I am very insistent on this point. Maybe I am wrong. Thank you.
We'll take a few more questions. Here.
Is this on? Working? My name is Stephen Phillips, and my sympathies in the U.S. Are for what's called affirmative action, and because there is, of course, a long history of social injustice in the U.S. as there is in India, and the idea of encouraging and even setting quotas for disadvantaged groups in the educational systems seems to me an absolutely outstanding way to overcome some of the unfortunate past. But there is one argument that bothers me that is aired over and over again on the side of the conservatives and those who are not forward-looking. And that is that quotas in education and other areas of life reinforce unfortunate categories. So, for example, Dalit is a category that over time we would like to see eliminated. But by reserving spaces for Dalits, one reinforces, one creates an interest in perpetuating that category. And so this argument, I find, is used by forces that are atavistic, that are not forward-looking. But there has emerged, at least in the discourse in the U.S., no good answer to it. And I just wonder how these ideas of at what time the quotas should be abolished so that we no longer are building in an interest to keeping these categories and so on. Just how is that conversation proceeding in educational circles in India?
My name is Apar. This is a question. I'm curious about Ambedkar's view on education, but I pose this question also as a broad philosophical question. But for Ambedkar, can self-respect be taught? That's just the question.
Hello. I'm Neha. I was wondering that nowadays constructivism and knowledge as construction is a very common byword, also in pedagogy and in other spaces. How would you see this idea of knowledge as construction in relation to your idea of thinking? Because the sense I'm getting is that yes, thinking is subjective, but somewhere it helps us reach a sort of objective understanding of inequality in society. And yet, there is this popular thing that knowledge is construction. Is this problematic, or, how do you see these two together? That's...
My name is Dipen Baghel. Gandhi.
Could you just wait, please?
Yeah.
This gentleman here.
It's not on, but I can hear you, so you can go ahead.
D.R. Nagaraj had asked for a dialogue between Gandhi and Ambedkar, and good reason, and beautifully articulated in the Flaming Feet. I'm glad to see that you have taken it up, because there has been an alienation of Dalits from Gandhi, I think, to the loss of both. And we have lost resources against the struggle for inclusion and against discrimination in that. In a similar way, the alienation and the rubbishing by the left of Gandhi, we have lost resources against the communal battle. We don't know where to go with it now, is gaining ground. And so also with the modern rationalists who rubbished Gandhi, as an old fuddy-duddy, they have no answer now to the ecological struggle or to the neoliberal model. So I think this question of how to bring the complementarities between opposites together, as you are trying with Gandhi and Ambedkar, is extremely important. Could you respond to this, please?
Hello.
Okay. The last question.
Yeah. My name is Dipen Baghel. Gandhi names Dalits as Harijans. So I just wanted to have your reflection on this discursive strategy and what could be the epistemic foundation of this pedagogy.
Thank you again for very important questions. And let's start with this difficult question you're raising about the danger of perpetuation in affirmative action. And the conservatives in the US are actually raising this point all the time. What do you think about, what do we do about this? There could be three ways of responding to this. One is a methodological question, methodological way of addressing this question. What is methodological way of addressing this question? That let us ask this question to those people who are raising this point, perpetuation. Can concept come up without their corresponding social categories? Okay. That is to say, as long as you are people who are in need of justice, who are the victims of injustice, categories will always remain to be relevant. You remove them, no category. Similarly, in India, same thing happens. We have a different problem. People want to become, they want to actually walk into this category. The Brahmins and the Gujars and Jats and Marathas, everybody wants to walk into this now. And so there's an oversaturation. I don't know how much burden will this category really carry with itself, politically speaking. But perpetuation at another level is something which is something which is done by those who are the beneficiary of affirmative action. Is that the case? Do they really want to perpetuate? Because if they are at the receiving end of all kinds of victimization, they would be the last people to be the party to the perpetuation. But this compulsion, now you do not want to really give you do not remove the conditions of perpetuation and talk about perpetuation in isolation is something which conservatives have to answer actually. So this is the second level of addressing the question. And the third one is about what is the filtering? How to really undercut the significance. And this is the debate between Axel Honneth, two contemporary philosophers, and Nancy Fraser. It's not simply removing the physical inequalities. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's something much deeper moral. Even though you are better in terms of a physical thing. As Toni Morrison says, the blacks never grow in the eyes of the whites. And how will that happen? You require Gandhi or Ambedkar, maybe Phule. The basic point is that. So when you are decided to be dissatisfied, I mean, there has to be something beyond this perpetuation. The 3 points. This is my own, I mean, you may not necessarily agree with me, but that's what, following the debate between Nancy Fraser and Axel Honneth very, very carefully and closely. So it's a moral struggle for recognition, Axel Honneth. And Nancy Fraser says, no, redistribution of material thing will actually undercut the need for perpetuation. So she is much more radical leftist than moral Axel Honneth. I mean, yeah, you can't, and that's why we should value education, moral education. It's all something which is so superficial in our Indian tradition. Government dishes out programs to moral education. You might get one after 16th of May if something happens. So, no, you can't teach it, yeah. How can you teach it? You have to feel it, realize it, internalize it, and demonstrate it. It is to be practiced and demonstrated in your actual practice. So actually, self-respect is ethical concept. You have to really demonstrate that you are nice, you are respectable to others, and you also consider others worthy of respect. So it's something, and then you go on your own famous darling Kant, once you adopt that moral categorical imperative, you can't teach it. You are the source of your own teaching. You can't teach it. It's not formal, superficial, artificial. Because you are given that law to yourself, and how can you really violate it? Can't you? So self-respect can't be taught to the school. It has to be. That's why the double perspective of David Blaise. You must really practice this in the classroom. And just quickly in Delhi, I have so many examples of Delhi. When some girls come from rural areas to some very fancy college in Delhi, Bahenji. They become Bahenji. I mean, to say the least, that they speak short of, you are uncivilized. That's it. You are Bahenji. So that is the point. You can't. Knowledge, Neha, your question I think is important, and constructivism is the should I say fashion or fascination? I don't know how to put it. But yes, constructivism is there. And if knowledge is constructivism, what is the role of thinking in this? I think every construction is backed by thinking. There's a purpose in construction. And therefore you could take Noam Chomsky and others. There are two kinds of construction. Construction and counter-construction happening. Right from Phule. Phule's is a very famous, Jyotirao Phule's, and you mentioned this, he is developing a critique of this Jnana, whole Indian philosophy. He doesn't say it is Jnana, it is Ajnana. It's not Vidya, it is Avidya in Phule. He is actually reversing it. And Phule is the first teacher of enlightenment, who's asking Shudras and Ati Shudras to put their head on their own shoulders, not borrow somebody's head on your shoulders. And that is Ajnana, if you will do that. So in construction, behind construction, there is always a thinking happening. And thinking is always subjective and therefore motivated for good reasons and bad reasons. And this is the process. And so this is half the answer, not the full answer. I'm not well equipped today to really, at this point of time, to really give you the full answer. Neither I have a full answer. Rudy, of course, don't tell people that I have in Bombay that I am bringing Ambedkar and Gandhi together. Otherwise, they will beat me. But anyway, you can tell them, look here, I'm making this. I think we have to go beyond, and I agree with you completely. Everybody has to go beyond. Gandhi has been a very important, and I've been writing about it actually. And so you'll get something very soon. So I can just assure you in anticipation. Harijan, what you said? What is it? So difficult questions, sir. I didn't understand the question, but simple. What is the discuss? What did you say? What did you say? Pedagogical something. Huh? Discursive. It's not discursive. I mean, Gandhi is, of course, is not. People might say it is a discursive strategy, but I don't think it is a discursive. That is a very, very simple spiritual way of resignifying certain people. There's a resignification. And within the framework of the Indian philosophy and Indian belief system, you cannot adopt any other category other than Harijan. Harijan is that, and therefore we have to be fair to Gandhi, not importing some artificial category from elsewhere. It is Harijan is the resignification of those people who are otherwise downgraded. So there is no discursive, I mean, if you can say in a methodologically a discursive move on the part of Gandhi to give resignification. But how important it was, but Dalit is absolutely different. Dalit is a struggle concept, not the concept which is given by Gandhi or anybody. It's a struggle concept which has come up from the struggle of the people from the street. So it is politically charged concept. It's not governmentalized, if you want to use that word, or state constituted, state protected category. So these are two different categories and they have their own political importance. And there's a debate on the 1930s, there's a debate on Harijan, so they discarded it. There was opposition to Harijan by Dalits, and though they were not called Dalits, they were called depressed class. Again, a colonial construct. That's it. Thank you very much for your wonderful